one thing that pricked my ears at the beginning of that conversation and that talk was the communications aspect. My background is communications and PR, and we're in the business of trying to change people's attitudes and behaviour. And if there's one advice I would give any organisation who is looking to change in any strategic way, is to have a communication specialist sitting on that table. One, so that they can understand why you're doing it, but two, they can give you the best advice as how you can translate that into something that a workforce can understand and implement. So if there's anything I would sort of contribute to that, I think that it's that particular communications aspect. Right, if we move on to our next talk, I'd like to introduce Emma Thomas to come and speak to you.
Good afternoon. As you said, my name's Emma Thomas. I work for Construction Excellence in Wales, but I also am seconded for 50% of my time into the Office of the Future Generation Commissioner. So you're going to get a bit of a hybrid presentation here, but hopefully you'll see why my both roles are so sort of collaborative and how they sort of overlap from the presentation. And also, I'm going to leave you with some what-ifs to be asked and some how-tos to be explored that you can take away from this and hopefully start to make some changes in your own organisations. My background is in environment and sustainability. I was probably one of the first generation to be able to undertake a degree in this area, and the whole construction thing and working with the construction industry and in the built environment, I've been doing for the last 15 years. So it's been sort of an experience and an expertise that I've built up. So for those of you who don't know, Construction Excellence in Wales, we're charged with driving change in construction. We exist to improve the industry performance in order to produce a better built environment. And our key action is around promoting the business case for change. So some of you may have heard of the Egan and Latham reports back in the 90s, and perhaps more recently the Farmer Review, Modernise or Die, actually saying construction needs to change. But those principles of rethinking construction, innovation, collaboration and integrated project teams, and thinking for the long term, and I think you'll sort of see the overlap there with our methods and ways of working with those of the Wellbeing and Future Generations Act. So we've worked in collaboration with the Future Generation Commissioner to assist in the delivery of the 6 priorities, 3 of the infrastructure-based priorities. And as I said, I'm there 50% of my time working with them to support the office and the delivery of those priorities. I like this quote. I use it in a lot of my presentations, and one of my biggest frustrations when I go in to work with organisations, or when organisations come in to the Commissioner's office and present the actions that they've been undertaking, is that much of what they're presenting and much of what they're saying that they're doing is about being a bit less bad. You know, they've got recycled toilet paper and, you know, they've done a little bit and they've just trimmed around the edges. And actually, if we're going to do this, if the Act is going to succeed and actually realise its potential, and we're going to do what we could do, and I think the opportunity is huge, we actually need to be good at this. And that's going to mean going back to the drawing board, really, and actually rethinking what we're actually doing, not trying to keep doing what we're always doing with the least sort of inconvenience. I'm going to show you a short animation which will hopefully give you a succinct overview of the work we've been doing around the circular economy for the built environment, and then give you some case studies and an overview of the framework tool that the Commissioner's Office we've been developing to actually assist you in making these decisions and making them from the earliest possible opportunity. Oh, we didn't play. I clicked.
We have an uncertain future. We take a finite number of resources, make something out of them, and ultimately, at the end of their life, throw them away. The wasteful approach we have applied to natural resources in construction is not compatible with the well-being of future generations. In a circular economy, resources are kept in use and their value retained. The concept stage establishes the basis for a project. Decisions made at this stage will have repercussions throughout and will impact the project's ability to work in a circular fashion. To establish a position of lowest impact, projects should consider if there is the opportunity to reuse or refurbish an existing building. This typically has a smaller impact than a new build. The smaller the circles represented here, the least impact it has. Design offers the biggest opportunity to deliver a circular economy approach. Decisions made at the design stage impact upon the value retained within a structure and materials life cycle. Projects need to design for reuse with durability in mind, making it easier to repair or upgrade, reuse, recycle or recover at end of the life. Design principles for a circular economy include building in layers, designing out waste, designing for adaptability, designing for disassembly, deconstruction, and the selection of materials for circularity. The construction phase has the ability to either enhance or inhibit the delivery of the design brief. Decisions made about the method of construction, material choice, site management, and build quality impacts at future stages. Recycled materials should be used intelligently. High recycled content does not necessarily mean lower impact, and the product itself may not be recyclable. Materials should be reused or recycled after disassembly and deconstruction, and should not contain hazardous substances. Good site management helps to retain the value of materials both on and off-site. The built environment should be considered an endowment for future generations. However, it can become a liability that has to be demolished at cost. Appropriate management and maintenance will help extend the use into the long term. Consideration must be given to the impact of any alteration on the ability of the structure to be reused, refurbished or recycled at end of life. The opportunity to reuse or refurbish a structure should always be considered ahead of demolition. Conversion can often be a more cost-effective alternative and could lead to significant savings. At the end of an asset's life, steps can be taken to prevent waste generation. Materials in the existing asset could be of use. Pre-demolition surveys can help identify components or resources of use. Demolition can result in added benefit from the extraction of value items. Leasing or the pre-sale of resources by the owner may encourage careful extraction of resources to retain value. To achieve circularity, no phase can work in isolation. The sustainable management of natural resources will require industry to capitalise upon opportunities offered by other sectors. The cascade of resources between sectors will maximise the value and use of these materials. With value, products and materials are more likely to be retained in use. This may be multiple times for a variety of different purposes across numerous industry sectors. Adopting circular economy practices in the construction and built environment sectors in Wales would lead to a benefit of £1 billion annually.
Okay, thank you. So you can go on our website and have a look at the full report. I think it's about 60 pages. But in the report, we worked with AMEC Foster Wheeler, who are now Wood PLC, to look at the economic opportunity to try and put the circular economy and the opportunity it offers into terms that people could understand, so that actually they could then start to see that it was really going to be beneficial for them. And through that work, using the methodology established for the Mayor of London's circular economy route map, they came up with a figure of £1 billion annually. I mean, it's huge. It's about 12.5% of what is actually spent in the built environment in Wales every year. So, you know, it really is a huge, huge opportunity here. Also within the report, we work with the Eco Design Centre in Wales to look at critical materials for the next 10 years, because we wanted a starting point, and we wanted to actually, you know, sort of challenge people, or channel people's thinking into actually where they should start, really, where should the priorities be. And when we started the research into critical materials for the next 10 years for the sector in Wales, I thought we were going to come up with a list of sort of rare earths that come from China and sort of things. And actually the top 10 is quite shocking, because 4 of the top 10 are timber, steel, architectural glass and aggregates. And I think these are all materials that are within our gift here in Wales to actually do something about. Oh, and we also did the jobs for Andy. So 7,300 jobs potentially from moving to a different way of working. So what does action look like, and what have we been doing? The site you're looking there is a former Pirelli tyre factory site, which is being built on for housing, 250 homes. Huge problems with the existing soil, and you'll see there all the water that it's retaining. Basically, it's alluvial clay material. It's nutrient poor. It's single-sized. The original plan was to excavate 600 mil throughout the entire site and bring in virgin material to replace it. We have been working with them through the various NRW protocols, through using Clare, to actually create soil, subsoil and topsoil at this site, and actually manufacture the soils from what's already there. So using a Ken-Dry product, using PAS 100 compost, the material doesn't then need to be removed, and actually they have what they need. And I think it's, you know, that different sort of thinking to actually looking at it rather than what they were originally going to do, which was to take it all off. And 600 mil across that site was a hell of a lot of trucks leaving that site. What you're looking at now is the Bruniver care home site, which was a care home being built in Newport. Timber frame constructed in Ebervale, passive elements to minimise the energy. But what we were focused on there was the fact that this was a remediated site. There was a former greenhouse and garden centre on the site. So we looked, working with them to make sure they used as much as they possibly could from what was already there, using base pads, foundation pads, re-augmenting the site by 3 metres to actually use the existing roads that were already there and in place for the garden centre. And I think somebody's already previously mentioned it, but BIM, so actually using design technology in terms of building information modelling to basically theoretically design the building before and actually build the building and work out all the problems before anybody actually got onto site. We reviewed the original design to design out waste. We looked at design changes to look at their impact on material usage, to look at waste production. It became a visual tool to talk to planners because we actually did some terrain modelling and retained 6,000 tonnes of soil on the site. But the planners were nervous. But because we had this model, we could actually show them that 6,000 tonnes on that site wasn't going to look like very much at all. We were talking millimetres of increase in the building height. It also enabled us to work out some practical solutions to help the site team and the designers to actually minimise the waste and look at their design for future projects. We looked at clashes. We were also able to look at those bits that are going to be difficult, the bits around the windows, you know, the design details, the things that we always know are going to cause problems. We could actually work those problems out in a virtual sort of forum without actually making the mistake. So we could have a practice. As I mentioned, we did the terrain modelling to keep, well, 5,687 tonnes of soil on the site. So rotating the building and using the existing road network and car park saved 2,000 tonnes of material. So the project, 100% landfill diversion, and saved the company £170,000. And this is when I spoke earlier about actually, if you are going to seize the opportunities, you need to get there right at the very beginning, because it is a bit of a cascade and a sort of a chain. And that's where the materials went. A local project for you guys, Pendrahafod Comprehensive School, you might be familiar with it. The original plan was to actually knock down the existing building and build a new school, which was going to become very expensive. And actually, through the architect and Swansea Council, they've actually done is a really extensive refurb. I mean, to look at the building now, you wouldn't know it isn't a new school. But there was a 60% carbon saving over new build, as well as a substantial saving in terms of waste, but also the fact that the construction went on while it was still a live site, so the children could stay in the school. There was no need to decant children to other schools, and through a phasing plan, a 5-phase plan, they could actually remain at the school. And we did everything from renting the lighting, which enabled them to put higher specification lighting in, made sure the canteen waste from the site was recycled, because when these site teams get onto site, they are like small villages. There are a huge number of people there at any one time working and generating a lot of waste, so all the canteen waste, food waste was recycled. We looked at waste as a resource, so the gym floor was going to come up, which was used as overcladding for an office, and looks really good. All the copper pipe work was reused around the building and forms a sort of artwork that sort of runs some continuity through the school. And right down to the furniture that's gone back into the school. So we took, with Ministry of Furniture and the Morgan Sindall, the contractor, remanufactured the furniture. So approximately, I think, 300 tables, chairs have all been remanufactured and either gone back in as tables and chairs or as learning walls, as agile working spaces. So I think they've actually got better products than came out of the school. But we worked with David Cheshire from ACOM, author of Building Revolutions, and he's actually now doing a study to actually look at how far we actually went in terms of circular economy, what more opportunities could we have explored, what did we miss out on. Could you hit play? Another piece of BIM for you. This is the Ice Arena Cardiff Devils play in Cardiff, and what you're looking at is the deconstruction of the Ice Arena. So through working with them to do lots of the same things as I've just spoken about with the other projects, we've gone a bit further with this one, because all the steel has actually been graded, labelled, colour-coded, and this little model shows you how it should come out to maximise the reuse of the steel. So they have that now ready for the deconstruction of this building, and they can take it out in the right order to maximise the reuse of the steel product. So working with the Future Generation Commissioner to monitor and measure, to advise and support the public sector to implement the Act. I would say, certainly within my field and my sector, the Act, that there are very few projects I can think of that the Act isn't going to apply to. The Act applies to the public bodies. However, somewhere between 55 and 65% of all projects in the built environment here in Wales come out of the public purse. So that there is very few projects that aren't going to be impacted at some point. And also this concept of thinking and planning for the long term, it's not actually that far away. So when we talk about a generation, we're talking about 25 years ago. So if we go back, it was when the Clintons were in the White House, when Diana and Charles separated, when computers looked like this, and we were all watching and singing along to The Bodyguard. So actually, 25 years in the future, it's not that far away, and if we don't act now, we're in danger of leaving a legacy and actually doing very, very little with the opportunity. Some work we've been doing around delivering infrastructure fit for the future is looking at some 52 projects and over 170 actions which have they've all had to implement the Act. And this is what we've got. The Act actually says that you should maximise your contribution across all 7 goals. Some goals are easier than others, I think, is what we're finding. Companies and projects are finding it easier to tackle the prosperous, resilient, having a go at globally responsible. But when it comes to things like a healthier Wales, a more equal Wales, looking at culture, we're doing very, very little. And we're not doing very much in terms of collaboration, which is not great for all our work on collaboration in the sector. So, working with the Office, we've developed a framework to assist with the implementation of the Act and to help you in when you take on board a project, whatever it is, to actually look at your decisions and how you're making them from the earliest possible opportunity. I'm not going to go through the whole thing in loads of detail, but I've put the link up. And if you are going to do anything, I'd advise you download a copy and actually go through it. So it enables you to make connections, use the 5 ways of working as a starting point to maximise your contribution, and actually reflect and demonstrate the change. So it goes through each of the ways of working, and you can look at what you should be doing at each stage, asks you the questions you should be posing and the challenge you should be making. And it goes through each then of the 7 goals in the same way. The Llanelli Wellbeing Village is one of the first projects to actually have taken this through and actually used it to implement as part of their process. But yeah, there's the link to the framework. I advise you should take nothing else from today. You do have a look at the tool because it will help. And yeah, keep in touch. I will have maternity cover. Thank you very much.